Hello everyone and welcome back to Casablanca Chess, where players are reliving the legendary games of the past and giving their own special flavor to them, so to say. So it's Hikaru Nakamura versus Magnus Carlsen, and they will be revisiting game 14 of the legendary 1985 World Chess Championship match between Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov, where Kasparov challenged Karpov for the title of world champion. So we go some 100 years into the future from the previous matchup where Chigorin faced Steinitz, and now unlike in the Steinitz versus Chigorin matchup where players deviated immediately from the position in hand, here they will follow it for some time. So to give you a little bit of what it was like in 1985, so the Kasparov took the lead already in round 1. Then Karpov retaliated in round 4, and Karpov took the lead in round 5. And then Kasparov retaliated, I think, in round 11. So the match was tied, and this is game 14 that we are reliving. So it is the first time in the match that the Taimanov Sicilian was employed by Kasparov, and let's see what happened there. Now, the original game ended in a draw, but let's see what happened in this one. So we're gonna go into the prepared position. E4, we have pawn to C5, the Sicilian defense. Knight F3, E6, we have pawn to D4, captures, and knight to C6. We have knight to C3 and D6. This is the Taimanov Sicilian setup, and the immediate pawn to G4. We have pawn to H6, of course, stopping pawn to G5 in the future, pawn to H4, and pawn to A6, taking away the B5 square from the two knights. We have bishop to G2 and bishop to E7. We have bishop to E3, and now knight captures on D4, queen captures, and pawn to E5. Queen back to D1, and bishop to E6. So this is the position, and this is where the players can now deviate from the games, or they can continue in the footsteps of Kasparov and Karpov. Now, of course, nowadays players are armed with engines. In 1985, of course, Kasparov and Karpov were not, but it's still very hard, even if the engine says, okay, this is because this is Kasparov versus Karpov, and as you know, we know how much Magnus loves his classics, and this can already be considered a classic. Chances are he knows this game, and Hikaru knows it as well. So do you play what Kasparov played? Do you play what Karpov played, or do you just listen to the engine and deviate from what the great players of the past played? Plus, they had classical time format for their games. This is rapid chess. But to this position, this is where we start. Both players have 15 minutes on the clock. This is rapid chess. Let's see what happens. Hikaru goes knight to d5 pretty much instantly, and it is how Karpov continued against Kasparov in 1985. We have rook to c8. Magnus also follows in Kasparov's footsteps. c3, and now knight to f6. We have knight captures on e7, and this is where we deviate from the original game. Kasparov played queen captures on e7, but Magnus plays king captures on e7. And it is now, as of move 14, that we have a completely new game. Now, I know what you guys are interested in. What does the engine think about Magnus's move? Well, queen captures and king captures, in terms of what the engine says, is 0.00. So both can be played, and Magnus deviates here. So okay, pawn to g5. This is what Karpov played even after Kasparov played queen captures on e7. Only the difference is Kasparov captured on g5. Here Magnus goes knight to g4, and already this is a very much a different position. Hikaru's bishop on e3 is hanging, and of course you have the bishop pair. You want to keep it. So bishop back to c1, and only now h captures on g5. And Magnus puts some pressure on Hikaru here. Hikaru is already down to 9 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock. Magnus has 13 minutes on the clock. And there's a good move here, and there are a couple of bad ones. So what you should play here is pawn to f3. It was not played in the game. But just to give you an example, pawn to f3 kicks away the knight, and then you recapture. So that's good. And now after, let's say, queen b6, you play queen to d2, you guard the b2 pawn, and now let's say rook h to d8, and the game continues. Of course, Magnus will be looking for some d5 action, and Hikaru will try to keep his king safe. Though that's not going to be too easy with the queen covering this diagonal, and, well, castling queenside doesn't seem like the safest option. But that's what you have to do in order to play this position. Bad would be to capture on g5 right away, because it does come with check, but f6 kicks back the bishop, and then when you move, now queen to b6 comes with a threat of queen captures on f2 checkmate. So you also have to take care of that, and you're just not in time to set up some sort of a defensive perimeter here. It's still survivable, just not as great. Hikaru played neither. He played bishop to f3. He just put pressure on the knight, and Magnus defended. Queen to d7. Hikaru puts more pressure on the knight, and now Magnus goes knight to h2, attacks the bishop on f3, and says, all right, I'm gonna probably capture on the next move. Hikaru plays bishop captures on g5 check now, f6 and bishop back to e3, and now, well, you could capture on f3 right away. First, rook c to g8. Magnus shifts both of the rooks over to the king side, and what is Hikaru to play here? It's a very tricky position. Do you save the bishop and give up the h4 pawn, or do you play pawn to h5 to save the h5 pawn but give up the bishop? Hikaru decides to play pawn to h5, which is the top move recommended by the engine. Knight captures on f3, queen captures, and now queen to b5, putting pressure on the b2 pawn, and the bishop back to c1. You could also play pawn to b3, but Hikaru decides for bishop to c1. So not a lot of action for this dark square bishop, or maybe even too much action, depends on how you look at it. Bishop to f7, just very simple chess. Magnus goes after the h5 pawn, and there's really no good way to defend it. Rook to h1, and now queen to a4, putting pressure on the e4 pawn. So you have to be very careful about what you do with your queen, and also b3 now is not possible. Bishop captures on b3, you just completely destroy white's defense. So queen to e2, now preparing pawn to f4 to bust open the center, and Magnus does it first. Pawn to d5. We have e captures, bishop captures, and now rook to h2. Your rook on h1 is hanging, of course, so you have to react to that. Rook to h2, and now queen to c6. And here Magnus is down to 4 minutes, but Hikaru down to 1.5 minutes. And how do you deal with bishop f3 and bishop to c4 threats? It's a very nasty position to face. Once the bishop attacks the queen has very few squares, and if you allow queen to land on e4 with check, that's gonna be game over. And to give you an example of how difficult it is to play, let's say you try developing bishop to e3. Okay, bishop to f3, and these are the absolute best moves that white has. Let's say bishop c5 check. You want to give up the bishop to claim the bishop on f3, but just king to e8. Black will ignore you, and after queen to c4, what do you play? Something like b6. You attack the bishop cannot move because the queen hangs, but you have to play queen to c4 in order to keep control over the e4 square. Now you can challenge the bishop, but then bishop d5 attacks the queen. Okay, you will take on a6, but you're going to be down a piece, and it's going to be completely winning for Magnus. So instead, after queen to c6, pawn to f4 was played. Hikaru's last chance is to create some chances against the black king, and now bishop to f3. All the same, we have queen to e3, and now rook captures on h5. Rook captures, bishop captures, Hikaru captures on e5, but now a most elegant move by Magnus, rook to e8. Inviting pawn captures on f6, because look at this. A very weird structure, but yeah, not in Hikaru's favor. If you capture, then you blunder your queen. So, of course, after rook to e8, queen to g1 was played, going after the g7 pawn, but now just king to f7, defending. And there's no good way to play this. Hikaru tried developing bishop to e3, but now just rook captures on e5, attacking the bishop. We have king to d2, queen to d5 check, king to c1, and here I'm sure you already see what Magnus played, but just in case you don't, feel free to pause the video and win the game in the cleanest way possible while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on taking the free bishop, and for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook captures on e3, and he was in this position on move 35 that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Now you're just down a piece, you're completely underdeveloped here, and there's just no good way to threaten anything. If you capture the rook, of course, queen to d1 is checkmate. I'm sure none of you forgot about our good friend the light square bishop on h5, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So again, great stuff by both Magnus and Hikaru, but Magnus is the one that had the upper hand here. Now, I would be very much interested, because a long time ago it was said that Magnus knows some 10,000 chess positions by heart, and as he studies the classics, well, in his younger days, as he studied the classics as much as he did, I would say that he probably knows all of the games that were ever played in a World Chess Championship match. Like maybe not all of the games from the Chigorin-Steinitz match, but maybe even those ones. But you know, Kasparov-Karpov, I'm pretty sure even Hikaru and every grandmaster in the world knows these games. Just who analyzed them and maybe considered some of the other ideas that were not played in the game. Yeah, here Magnus, you know, improves on his old teacher Kasparov and takes down Hikaru, who was basically wielding Karpov's position in this game. So yeah, great stuff. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found that very nice rook captures on e3 move and not forgot about the bishop on h5. I would like to thank Michael LeBlanc, Gerhard Henkelmann, Richard Knapp, Cameron Mascari, and Ginko Gonzalez for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what exciting games we uncover in the next round. See you soon.